Hi, everybody. Frank Galdo, 209 Times. Very excited to have my friend, Mr. Ron Freitas, San Joaquin County District Attorney candidate. And by the way, today's episode is being brought to you by Yes You Can with Lance McCann, your local realtor. Mr. Ron Freitas. Sir, thank you very much. I know you're very busy during this time. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure, Frank.
I think it goes without saying that there's problems in the district attorney's office, and you can there's evidence of that. Probably one of the most clear-cut ways to show that there's evidence of that is recently there was a vote where first of all, let me back up. You had a boss, Mr. James Willett.
I did.
And Mr. Willett also was your opponent's boss, Tori,
Yes.
correct? And he worked closely with both of you.
That's right.
How many years have you been with the DA's office?
I'm in my 34th year with the district attorney's office.
Okay. And so you're a veteran prosecutor. I know you've done a lot of homicide, drug cases, everything else. Tori doesn't have quite that level of experience, but she's has been the DA. He's worked with you both. He chose to openly endorse you as opposed to the incumbent. What does that say?
It says that there's a lot of problems in the office. It's very disappointing that the office is in this low state of morale and that she's put it there.
Ron, every law enforcement association in San Joaquin County, from the Stockton Police Officer Association, the San Joaquin County District, or the San Joaquin County Deputy District Attorneys, the Deputy Sheriff's Association, Lodi Police Department, et cetera, Ripon, Escalon, Tracy, they all have supported you. Plus, there's this vote of no confidence. Plus, there's your last boss. I think, is it accurate to say all of the state assembly members in this area, which runs the gambit of Republican and Democrat?
That is right. We are endorsed by Assemblymember Carlos Villalpudua, Assemblymember Heath Flora, and Assemblymember Jim Cooper. And those are the three assembly members that represent San Joaquin County at this time.
That's so that there's a Republican and two Democrats?
Exactly.
Okay, so it's bipartisan support, right?
Yes.
For your office. This is my question to you. We've got a lot of victims that I've, for the last several years, have helped a lot of the victims, especially that were involved, victimized by the speed freak killers. I speak to them on a regular basis. They have absolutely no faith in Tori or the DA's office. My question to you is, number one, what do you tell victims right now that how are they supposed to have faith in the office when the office doesn't have faith in the office?
And, they should follow the lead of the state organizations, the state victims organizations that are endorsing me. I'm being endorsed by Crime Victims United, the Alliance of Crime Victims, and Crime Victims for Law and Order. These are three statewide organizations that have boards across the state, and they have interviewed me and decided that I am the best answer for this. They're fighting these three organizations, the tactics of Tori's allies in San Francisco and and in Los Angeles, where victims are not represented during the proceedings. No bail policies are allowed to promulgate. And victims are not being represented at parole hearings, like we saw Siren, where George Gasson didn't say one. And mass amounts of violent criminal offenders, 30,000, are allowed to be released back into our community.
Ron, Prosecutors Alliance, which Tori co-founded with George Gascon and Chesa Bodine, I noticed she's not pushing that agenda anymore. It seems like she has, once those guys started getting recalled, it seems like she did a political switch where she's no longer emphasizing that, and suddenly she's tough on crime again. What's your thoughts there?
Of course she is. It doesn't work. It's never worked anywhere. It's not working in LA, where they're trying to recall Gascon. It's not working in San Francisco, where they're recalling Bodine. And our voters don't have to do that. They can simply just unre-elect her here in June. That's what makes this the most important election that we have in San Joaquin County, if not this year, probably for the last 10 years.
Ron, as I said earlier, the district attorney's office right now is in total, absolute dysfunction. If you become our next DA, what is your agenda in the next 90 days?
Our agenda is very, very simple. We focus on three very important prongs, and those are prongs in our community. One, violent and career offenders, like the one that killed Jimmy N, serve their entire sentences, are not allowed to remain on our street, and we do everything we can to keep them off our streets, Frank. Second, we're going to fight for our victims. We're going to give them the respect and dignity they deserve. And we're going to use everything that we can, filing gang enhancements, gun enhancements, weapon enhancements, protected class enhancements, and we're going to follow up on this. And we're going to take these cases against the parole board and make sure that these offenders stay in there. Last but not least, we're going to do intervention. Intervention for our juvenile, our first-time offenders, and get them out of the system. With education, we can pull them out of the playground to prison pipeline, just like we're doing in my other job, my night job with Lodi Unified.
Well, as I was listening to you, there's one thing that jumped out, and there's a stark difference between you and your opponent, and that is you mentioned that you are for sentence enhancements, including gang enhancements. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, your opponent, she doesn't say it, but she's against sentence enhancements, and the proof of that is Prosecutors Alliance has come out several times with the organization that she co-founded. They are against sentence enhancements. I mean, how important are sentence enhancements to your toolbox as a prosecutor?
Frank, we have to use everything that we have to make sure these people are not allowed on our street. These are very dangerous individuals. What we see right now from the Prosecutors Alliance, unfortunately, is the 21st century prosecution principles. These principles weren't written by prosecutors. They weren't written by police departments. They weren't even written by assembly members. What it was written by was a professor, and not a very good one, that came up with these large, radical, dangerously social experiment where large groups of individuals aren't prosecuted simply because of their class, and large group of crimes aren't being prosecuted. These have been adopted in a few of our communities, like San Francisco and LA, and they're definitely not working.
Ron, you clearly have a completely different agenda than your opponent. The next question I got to ask you is, do you have the experience to implement this agenda?
Well, answer your first question, yeah, we have a completely different agenda. And it must be the better agenda because now she's come full circle and now she's reinvented herself to now saying what we're saying and doing the things that we had to do. So it'd be very interesting to see if we reelect her, what she's going to do. As for my experiences, 34 years in the office, I've done every single job that's in there. I found a specialty of homicide in gangs, where I not only did the trials for a long period of time, but I also oversaw them and worked with the talented prosecutors that got justice for our communities. And quite often, these crimes of violence were taking place in our communities of color and in our poor neighborhoods. So we were working very, very hard for the victims getting justice that they need. I've been recognized by two different organizations as a top prosecutor, San Joaquin County Probation Officers Association and the California District Attorneys Association, for my work for victims and as a prosecutor.
Tell me about the last one for you were weren't you the prosecutor of the year or something?
Instructor of the year for them, yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's very impressive.
For the state of California and all the training they do, over 10,000 individuals every single year.
Can you tell us which your alma mater?
I attended Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I went to the University of Pacific Law School, McGeorge School of Law.
Ron, it's no secret that Stockton has been named multiple times like one of the most miserable cities, which by the way, I think is inaccurate, but it has been listed several times as being one of the most dangerous cities, one of the most miserable cities, et cetera, et cetera. Your thoughts on how the DA's office could help change that trajectory?
You know, Frank, I agree with you. I think we have a great community that we can do a lot of positive things in, and for us to be on the top 5 cities of worst community to live in, it's really a tragedy. We have great people. We have central location. We have warehousing. We have IT jobs. We have an airport that takes the largest cargo and passenger planes. We have the Delta that no other community in California has. So why we aren't succeeding really is disappointing to me. And we're going to stay on those worst 5 lists until we really address our crime issues. And we can't address them the way the current administration is suggesting, which is semantics, word games, that we're no longer going to call it crime and we're no longer going to call individuals criminals. by taking reasonable, aggressive steps of enforcement, early intervention, and education, we can make changes and really have this area take off.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Appreciate it, and we're looking forward to it. This community really stands at a point right now that we have a chance to do great things. I think with our central location, our warehousing, our IT, our ag tourism, our reasonable housing, our great educational system, we have the possibility to really take off and make this place someplace special. Unfortunately, we're being held back that we remain on the top 5 lists of worst communities to live in time and time again. And I would like to see it change it. So I think the voters' choice is really very simple. Quite honestly, we continue to do the same thing. And if you're happy with the way things are going, vote for her. But if you want change, real change that implements community values and common sense, hopefully vote for me.
Ron, you obviously have a lot of experience under your belt. You could really pretty much do whatever you want with your life at this point in time. Can you tell our viewers, why are you running?
This is very important to me. My life has been one of public service. I come from a history of public service. My dad and father, brother-in-law all served in the military. My uncle was a police officer. My grandson now is in the Navy. I love this community. My wife and I have been married 31 years. We've raised our 2 daughters. We have 3 grandchildren, like my grandson in the Navy. And we want to see this community succeed. And to see this radical, dangerous social experiment going on in our community, it has to stop. And the voters now have a chance to make the change so that we can return to community values and common sense in deciding our public safety.
So, sir, thank you very much for coming today. June 7th, right?
June 7th.
And who should they be voting for?
Ron Freitas.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ron. And remember, this was brought to you by Yes You Can with Lance McCann, your local realtor. Thanks, everybody.